Minasan! Welcome back for another round of Warhammer research. I feel confident I've completed my arc. I really enjoyed them a lot. They are definitely my favorites. They are hands down my favorites. Now I'm jumping on to the next faction. That is the Tyranids. Oh, how tyrannical. How tyrannidic. Okay, I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna stop that. Jumping into returning over to Krak Duk, Krak Duk, Krak. He's awesome. He's really good. Tyranids explained the galaxy's biggest threat. We're gonna find out. Get a nice little primer. Get a quickie preview from Krak Duk to see exactly who the Tyranids are, what they do before we start. Before I go on to the bigger deep dives along the way. Hopefully get some names, maybe like a key name. I don't know, maybe what their gods are. Either way, all I know is that they're hive mind bugs, and they're one of the most dangerous to deal with, and the ones that bore the orcs out because they just keep coming wave after wave. So be sure to check out Krak Duk, the link in the description below. This is a call to action. Comment, like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification bell, and let's start the research.
Alright friends, what do you get when you mix bugs, dinosaurs, a tad eldritch horror, and a constant hangriness? Well, I don't really know, but if you combine Tyranid and Id, you get the Tyranids. These silly little guys are one of the most dire threats in the galaxy,
interesting.
if not the most dire threat. So, today, get your raid and fly swatters ready, because we're going to learn all about these space bug dino critters. The Tyranids were first officially encountered on the ocean world of Tyranid, where Inquisitor Cryptman creatively ID'd them as Tyranids, specifically High Fleet Behemoth. And there were other Tyranid encounters before this, but the Imperium didn't properly identify them as Tyranids until the encounter with Behemoth. One cool thing about these dudes is that they're actually not even really from the Milky Way galaxy. The Tyranids are from outside of the galaxy, and it's theorized that in-universe the Tyranids were attracted to the Milky Way when Super Chad Gilliman activated a Necron beacon called the Pharos Array in order to regroup Imperial forces in Imperium Secundus. The Pharos Array was being used by Gilliman to function as a secondary astronomicon and aid Imperial navigators when traveling the warp. Just think of it like a giant magic lighthouse.
Oh!
But the damage was already done, and the Tyranids were en route to the galaxy. And they're also most likely attracted to Astronomicon for similar reasons. This would prove a fatal attraction for all the Milky Boys in the Milky Way. I wasn't kidding when I said they may be one of the most dire threats that the galaxy faces. The Tyranids made a huge entrance when Behemoth ravaged a whole lot of worlds and then almost destroyed the home of the Ultramarines, as well as Gilliman in his Sleeping Beauty era.
Wow.
So I'd say they're pretty scary. But yeah, okay, sure, they're scary, but why scary? Well, the Tyranids have one goal, and that's to eat all the biomass they could possibly find. And to accomplish this goal, they have adapted an insane number of monstrous bioforms, weapons that make war crimes look like poor limes, and just downright terrifying tactics.
Wait. So they got weapons? So they got weapons. I just heard that correctly. I'm assuming bioweapons, but they got weapons. He said that right? Bioweapons? Literally flesh borer?
To accomplish this goal, they have adapted an insane number of monstrous bioforms, weapons that make war crimes look like poor limes,
they got weapons,
and just downright terrifying tactics. But let's address the Tyranids themselves and some common.
So basically, it's Starship Troopers if the bugs from Kundatu have guns.
Limbs, just like an insect, have strong chitinous armor. That's fancy talk for bug-like exoskeletons, and most of them are super hard to kill since they usually have duplicate organs, kind of like a space marine. Furthermore, all of the Tyranid weaponry is just advanced biotech. That's right. All of the Tyranids' guns are just parts of their body or other organisms that they evolved to have. Like, this dude, he evolved to have literal actual gun hands. Some species have all the luck. But that's actually one of the biggest things that make Tyranids so threatening. They have the ability to evolve at an insane rate, and this helps them adapt to nearly any enemy. Each evolution takes anywhere from minutes to over a lot of millions of years. But the ones that evolve fast are usually like lame bacteria or viruses that almost nobody cares about, and the notable evolutionary changes that do take place over millions of generations are Also pretty lame. As a former bio major, I can tell you that I'm fairly confident no species in real life has evolved literal gun hands after being shot for a few days. So whenever the Tyranids encounter a problem, unlike us,
boxing
they don't
shrimp.
have an existential crisis in the kitchen and then impulsively buy more models to add to the pile of shame. No, the Tyranids, they take it on the chitin and they evolve a whole new bioform to completely counter whatever proved to be a problem. Tyranids are constantly learning from their enemies and adding it to their collective knowledge so that they know how to better kill and eat their next meal. It's like the extreme ultimate form of that loser on Twitter that you called a moron, so he stalked every possible aspect of your life just so he could craft the perfect insult. And that brings us to the next point. Perhaps an even greater strength in their rapid evolution, the Tyranids have a hive mind, which is a huge tactical asset. There's a few
That's scary.
as to what the true nature of the hive mind is, but whether the hive mind is just a psychic network and database for all the Tyranids to store and access information like a ultra messed up bio-murder internet, or if it's a supreme organism that controls all the Tyranids as an extension of itself, one thing's for certain: the hive mind is one scary son of a gun to fight. The hive mind has knowledge built up of countless experience of all the Tyranids connected to the hive, meaning that it's probably smart as Elon thought he was when he changed Twitter's name to X. This means that it has centuries of tactics stored and it can learn extremely rapidly. So, it either knows how to kill you and all your friends, or it can learn how to kill you and all your friends faster than a race between the White Scars and Sihon.
So basically, they could attain intelligence at a rapid rate. Okay. Oh my gosh. They could attain intelligence at a rapid rate within this hive mind, which could explain why they can use weaponry and have tactics. That is, now that I think about it, that's actually scary. They don't seem to be. They're definitely not stupid creatures. They're not stupid creatures. This is actually I don't know. This is standard fare character build. You know, I mean, once you do the whole hive mind thing, like the Borg and such, yeah, I don't know. They seem to be very standard fare build when dealing with insects and such. Now, if they were piloting mechs, I would be awesome by that. I hope they're piloting mechs. Well, I know there's no mechs. Well, I know there's mechs, but not like BattleTech and Warhammer. But that would be cool if they're operating machinery. I hope that's what will come out of this.
Another cool and scary thing about the hive mind, depending on how many arms you have, is that the hive mind's psychic presence is so potent it causes a phenomenon known as the shadow in the warp and has some pretty nasty effects on psychers. These effects do scale with how potent of a psyker someone is, but it's usually always pretty bad news for those magic boys. Some notable effects of the shadow in the warp are that astropaths can't send psychic messages or see areas where a hive fleet is present. This is a big issue since astropaths are the Imperium's main form of long-range communication, and severing that can mean an Imperial world is cut off from the rest of the Imperium, and other Imperials can't even detect if a hive fleet is present. This is often a snowball into
the mages are screwed.
Something known as a big frickin' problem, or should I say a bug freaking problem.
Ha ha ha.
So, a hive fleet can destroy many worlds without the Imperium ever finding out until they see a wake of dead planets. But, other than Psychers, the Shadow in the Warp is so powerful that even non-Psychers are affected. This is possible since pretty much every being in 40k has a psychic presence, even if just a little bit. So, the Shadow in the Warp makes normal people extremely anxious and can even plunge people into insanity, further playing into the Eldritch horror aspects. But back to
can affect everyone.
Its vast knowledge, the hive mind creates various Tyranid bioforms to accomplish whatever task it needs in order to secure its next meal. And remember, the Tyranids are a lot like a rich person's store. Everything's organic. So the equivalent of troops, tanks, and even ships are all different Tyranid bioforms. So
that's what I was wondering.
More notable and interesting Tyranid bioforms. First off, let's talk about the Norn Queen, since she's the one responsible for physically making all these nasty critters.
Of course.
The Norn Queen is essentially just a Tyranid factory that lives in the center of every hive fleet. The Norn Queen is capable of designing or cloning whatever Tyranid bioform that the hive fleet needs for its current campaign.
Okay.
The Queen is fueled and uses biomass from reclamation pools to create these little buggers, which I suppose I should explain what exactly a reclamation pool is for the less nerdy of the audience. A Tyranid invasion usually follows some basic steps, which can be succinctly described as check out a world, drop off troops of the world, wreck shit on the world, and then, when everything is dead and eaten, jump into the pool for a nice celebration party.
Oh.
Except that pool dissolves all of you and your friends into a nice little soup ripe for the Norn Queen to make you again and repeat the process.
Wow.
With that, let's talk about their basic troops, the Gons. These little fellas are relatively small and weak by themselves, but they almost always attack in large groups to overwhelm their foes. In addition, they have many mutant variations to fulfill different battlefield roles. Most common, however, are the Terma and Horma varieties. Termagants are the ranged variety of Gaunts and can have a number
The gun
of
bugs.
weapons. Their most common is a flesh borer. This gun shoots flesh borer beetles, which, as their name suggests, bores into flesh.
Nice.
Another common weapon are the spike rifles, which, as their name suggests, shoot spikes. Spine fists, which, as their name suggests, are fists that shoot spines. And devourers, which is a type of flamer. I'm just kidding. Devourers shoot flesh worms, which, as their name suggests, devours whatever they're shot at and eats its way towards the unlucky sucker's brain. Then, the Hormagaunts are the melee shock variety of Gaunts. Each Termagant has a pair of scything talons, which, as their name suggests, are talons that scythe things. And I decided this is an overused joke. Which, as his name suggests, is a joke that is overused, and I'll now stop. The Hormagaunts are extremely fast and vicious, and something that makes them even more troublesome to deal with is that they're actually able to reproduce without the Norn Queen, so they can have great numbers on the battlefield, or continue to trouble a world after the Hive Fleet may have left. Other cool Gaunts are Gargoyles, Gaunts with wings, Barb Gaunts, Gaunts with big guns, and Ibram Gaunts, Gaunt with plot armor. Next, let's talk about the equivalent of commanding officers in the Tyranid army. The Tyranid warriors are large beasts known as synapse creatures. Synapse creatures are essentially psychic conduits that connect to the hive mind and amplifies its presence in order to direct other Tyranid bioforms on the battlefield.
Oh.
Along with being a
They're
big
the general.
psychic Wi-Fi extender, the Tyranid warriors are also proficient warriors and have a number of deadly weapons like the aforementioned rending claws. They have bone swords, death spitters, and a wide variety of other scary gun hands and sword hands. Interestingly, warriors also have a bit of autonomy from the hive, and they use this to assess the battlefield and make on-the-fly tactical decisions, much like a commanding officer of more conventional species would do.
That's scary. Yo, this is a frightening faction here. What did I just stumble into? Psychic, the general psychic ability to direct the Gaunts all over the place, and the Hormagaunts. And this is just the general. I don't want to even. Oh my gosh! How many more of these? How many more titles? In the hierarchy are there? Holy mackerel! Also, the reclamation pool. That's hilarious. They just fall and die and be food. But no, seriously, these warriors are scary. How is it that Warhammer hasn't been completely overrun? Absolute from these guys here, and they're clearly not interested in occupation. They just want to devour.
A step up from the warriors would be the Hive Tyrants, which are basically just really huge warriors. It's often the main synapse creature in a war and has a big brain to match its big sword, and maybe has another big thing. Wink, wink. Of course, I'm just kidding, since we would have known if it had a big thing, considering they don't wear any pants. On the contrary, patriarchs do in fact have a big thing.
Oh my god!
But back to the Hive Tyrants. They mostly have the same weapons as warriors, except bigger and more killier. Also, like all Tyranids, this dude got variants. One cool one being the Winged Hive Tyrant, which, as his name suggests, no, damn it, it's just a Hive Tyrant with wings. We'll leave it at that. And then another thing that's technically a variant of a Hive Tyrant is the Swarm Lord. The Swarm Lord is one of the few Tyranid quote-unquote characters, and it's a perfect Hive Tyrant. It is said that the Swarm Lord being made is a stress-induced response within the Norn Queen for when the Tyranid strategies are beginning to fail.
Oh.
And really wants that victory royale. The Swarm Lord has
the Swarm Lord is the last resort,
and is able to create strategies separate from the hive mind in order to win a war. It's also able to be spawned by any hive ship if the need arises, making it practically immortal. It's also unfortunately known for getting its ass kicked whenever a character needs to be shown as a badass. But this is a Tyranid video, so we won't talk about that. Some other cool bioforms are Lictors, which are like scouts and assassins of the Tyranids. Carnifexes, which are giant monstrous nids that act kind of like tanks as they have giant destructive weapons and heavy armor. Gene Stealers, which love denim, and then the Hive Guard, which are heavy troops that defend Tyranid commanders and structures. It's also rumored that the Hive Guard were made using some harvested Space Marine DNA. But I don't really know if that one's actually true lore.
That is a lot that he just went through.
They're cool. There's also like a million other bioforms, but I'll cover those in a future video as this one's supposed to be pretty general.
Okay.
So let's close this off by briefly discussing hive fleets. Yep, I keep mentioning them, but what are they? Well, a hive fleet is basically just a large Tyranid swarm that goes planet to planet consuming biomass, and they also come in a lot of fun colors. A single hive fleet can be an apocalypse level threat and are almost impossible to completely destroy since if they are defeated, they can break into splinter fleets and regroup. Notable hive fleets are Behemoth, the first major hive fleet to hit the galaxy, who are mostly defeated on Macragge, Hive Fleet Kraken, the second major Tyranid fleet known for nearly eradicating Crafter Leandon, and of course, Hive Fleet Leviathan, the largest hive fleet in the galaxy. They defeated the Orcs on Octarius, really busted the Blood Angels balls on ball, and recently made a comeback to kick off the 4th Tyrannic War for the launch of 10th Edition and Space Marine 2. And let's go over some lesser known but cool hive fleets. There's Hive Kronos, which was made to counter chaos, and they shoot bio bullets that can somehow eat souls.
What?
Bouken, which are even more specialized in adaptation, and they like to kill Tau. And then there's Tiamat, who have the prettiest color scheme and decide to settle down on a plan to mysteriously build something.
Oh.
Let's be honest, secluding yourself to build stuff all day and only come out for food once in a while is like super relatable to 40k players. So let's all
okay, that's scary. That's
also,
another one that's scary.
I want to mention that I love that
You're
all the
building
hive fleets
something
are named after mythological and religious monsters. It's such a cool piece of flavor.
I agree.
But with that, let's start to bring this brief Tyranid overview to a close. I really like the Tyranids. That mutant dinosaur aesthetic with the Eldritch horror mixed in is just so cool, and I would have started with them if it weren't for their hive mind. Don't get me wrong, the hive mind is a super cool piece of them, but I like customizing writing characters, so the Tyranids didn't really fit that goal. But regardless, the Tyranids are great, and they make for an excellent enemy. A lot of people say that the Tyranids are most likely to win the setting, and honestly, that's not even a crazy take. I know the Tyranids seem to lose a lot in lore, but people fail to mention how they most likely already devoured hundreds of worlds before whatever begins. Plus, if the theory that the Tyranid presence in the Milky Way is just a scouting force, then things look even more dire. But yeah, the Tyranids are super cool.
No, a scouting force.
Tyrannic wars in the future, as well as a more in-depth look into their bioforms. So stay tuned.
I can't believe they can actually destroy the universe. They could be the ones that come out on top. It's hard. It's hard for me to process. The reason why it's hard for me to process is because they are a civilization. You know, even though they share a hive mind, they are a civilization in design. You know, they have a whole hierarchy. They got weapons. They know strategy. They know what to do. They only have one overall mission: eat everything. Eat everything. That's it. Just eat everything in sight. But they're smart enough to actually even have one faction just take over a planet, not even eat the planet, just take over the planet and build something, while occasionally going to other planets to eat, to take care, just to feed themselves, and then go back to the planet and build whatever it is they're building. This is insane. But the thing is that they got a hierarchical structure. Their fleet has different. They have different sizes of fleet. They got different. They got a general that knows how to direct. They got specific like Gene Stealers and Carnifex. Like, everyone's got a different role. You know what I'm saying? They all got a different role. So let me contrast that to the Borg. The Borg doesn't exactly have a hierarchy. Everybody's supposed to be equalized. Perfection is the Borg's goal. You know what I'm saying? And so they don't. The movie's notwithstanding, I think it was a bad idea having a Borg queen. The whole concept of the Borg originally is that not only were they a hive mind, but they had no hierarchical system. It's just one functionality, perfection, and they must absorb and devour all worlds to incorporate into its perfection. Meanwhile, here we have the bugs, whose only goal is to devour the world and have no perfection. It's just them and them alone. Them and them alone. And of course, again, the reclamation pool's hilarious. You know, everybody devours, they go, they jump in, they dissolve and be fed just to get repurposed into a whole nother Tyranid. That's pretty insane. But here they do have a hierarchical system, but their mission holds true. They just devour, and they do it by whatever means. If you can make a gun out of your arm, make a gun out of your arm and devour. You can if you can become, you know, a mech, then, you know, sprout those mech legs and stomp, then devour. I still would like to, although I still think it would be funny to see them jump inside like a mech or a car and drive it like the orcs. Their weaponry is frightening. I couldn't even write it all down because there was just so many. But the fact that they fire, that they're eating machines that fire eating machines. How was it that Homer Simpson said it? Are you gonna sick? What was it he said? You're gonna sick with sick bees at me, or you're gonna sick, or you're gonna sick dogs with bees in their mouths at me. That I forgot how that goes. You could let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. You know, that spit bees at me. That's what these guys are. That's what they are. They do that. That's what they do. You know what I'm saying? They got, you know, they're the dogs with the bees in their mouths, and they're trying to bite you with the bees at Homer Simpson. Oh man. In terms of their psychic powers, that's a great counter to the psychic system. And I say that because it could be so easy, given so far what I've seen, like the WOG, you know, being a whole big psychic field type of situation, especially the orcs' secret power, and then got, you know, the Necrons, the Imperium, and so on with their psychic spellcasters and everything. It could get very, you know, like the power scale. The power scale of the psychic abilities could go out of control. You know, it could go completely out of control. And having something like this, Shadow in the Warp, helps counter that, helps balance it out. Especially given that this is just a scouting force. According to Duck, it's only a scouting force they're dealing with. There's no telling how many worlds they devour before they even enter the Milky Way galaxy, and how many they devoured in the Milky Way galaxy before they got discovered by the Imperium. But nevertheless, this is a good counter, story-wise, because you don't want power creep happening among the factions, and then end up like Dragon Ball. We all seen what happened with power creep in Dragon Ball. You know, the power level creep. You don't want that to happen. And having something like this legitimately is a good counterbalance. But again, there is a major problem with regards to this world build and the story build with the Tyranids. I don't think they should have had the ability to reproduce so easily. I feel like they might be too overpowered, because if every time you write about the Tyranids, you end up having to defeat them at every step of the way in the story. You're kind of ruining the mystique, the mythos that brought them along. Like he had pointed out, they got that mythological feel, like the Kraken. You know, when they show up, it's like you're facing off against the mythological Kraken. And if every single encounter is always going to be a Tyranid loss, you're kind of losing the punch, the terror, you know what I'm saying, the that they bring to the mix. I'm not sure if there's any books that is focused on Tyranids, like having the Tyranids being the main character of the story. If not, I should know. Then I should find out, because maybe I might want to do that. Maybe I want to write that. Well, how the Tyranids will do it. But you gotta. But if you're gonna bring something that's OP, especially to balance out a power that could go OP. In this case, the psychic power. you gotta make sure that they don't always lose. You know, you made the Tyranids special. You made the Tyranids special. You made them pretty powerful. You know, unique, interesting, because the fact that they got various types of weapons that does all sorts of horrific things is amazing. But the hierarchy and how they react to each other is very interesting. I would really like to know if there's like given that they're supposed to be a mythos, if there is like a character, like for example, there's let's see, there's a warrior named Tarnak that successfully wins battles. You know what I'm saying? That successfully pulls off a devour and has been hard to kill off compared to the other Tyranid warriors. You know what I'm saying? Like the name is legendary. I'll give you a good one. Babylon 5. Captain Sheridan is known as Star Killer to the Minbari because of what he successfully did in one of the battles, which was taking down one of their star cruisers, one of the Minbari's starships, because they were unbeatable, you know, and in the eyes of the Minbari, he is the most hated among the humans. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really despise him. They hate him. They call him the Star Killer. They would love to go into battle with him and take him out. That's the you know, saying he's the boogeyman to them. The legendary vampire. The I am legend to them. Is there a Tyranid who's like that? You know what I'm saying? That was given a name, you know, and is the one that is the most feared out of all the Tyranids. That's what I would like to see. That's what I would like to find. I would love to research that and see how that was done, if such a thing exists, because this is actually a pretty dang good faction, quite honestly. This was a very well built faction. You know what I'm saying? They got a lot of variety. They got a good hierarchical system. They got a very potent magic system. That Shadow on the Warp is crazy because even the most normal of a soldier will freak out because, you know, that the instinct, the fear instinct will kick in. It's like, why am I nervous all of a sudden? You know, even though you know, say, since everybody's got like a psychic link, just that some of them are not fully psychically in tuned and not aware of it, but you know what I'm saying, according to the rules. So, you know, the Shadow on the Warp will trigger that, and it'll just seem like nervousness as opposed to an actual psychic encounter with the others who will freak the hell out and be like yeah, this is a very fun group. You know what I'm saying? This sounds like a very fun group. I'm still putting the orcs on top. Come on. I mean, they're party animals. The Tyranids are just all business. The Tyranids are all business. The orcs is all fun. I want fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Tyranids. I'm looking forward to seeing more. I hope there is a named Tyranid that got his own story. I wanna see that. You know, I want to research that and be awed. And this is gonna be fun. Good. This is gonna be a fun thing. Good video by Krak Duk. Because I keep seeing Duk without the duck, the C in it. Great job. A great introduction to the Tyranids. So I'm looking forward to more. So head on over to Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and grab yourself a copy of Any Possible Man Strange Fantasy Novel Written by Me. You'll find links to the book in the description down below, along with links to other merch such as pins, stickers, t-shirts, music. Enjoy the products. Thank you for your patronage. And if you happen to have a copy of the Impossible Man novel, thank you very much. If you did a lore research, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And if you're interested, you can join me on my live multi-stream on Twitch and Kick every Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock p.m., where I do lore research, gaming, cultural studies, and more. Look forward to hanging out with you. So until the next Warhammer research, thank you all for joining me, and I wish you all a good night. Buenas noches, and oyasumi nasai.